The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden haze over the sprawling construction site on the outskirts of Crestwood, a bustling city where steel and ambition rose in tandem. Dust swirled in the air, kicked up by the relentless churn of machinery and the steady rhythm of hammers striking steel. The site was a symphony of chaos, cranes groaning, drills buzzing, and workers shouting to be heard over the din. Amid it all stood Malik Jackson, a man whose broad shoulders and steady hands had become as much a fixture of the site as the skeletal framework of the skyscraper taking shape. Malik, a 42-year-old black man with a weathered face and eyes that carried the weight of years, moved with the quiet confidence of someone who knew his craft. His dark skin glistened with sweat under the midday heat, and his calloused hands gripped the controls of a towering crane with practiced ease. He had been a construction worker for nearly 2 decades, his life shaped by the rhythm of labor, long hours, aching muscles, and the fleeting satisfaction of seeing a project rise from the earth. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and Malik took pride in it. Today, though, something felt different. There was a restlessness in the air, a subtle shift that Malik couldn't quite place. Maybe it was the way the clouds gathered on the horizon, promising rain. Or maybe it was the way his coworker, Javier, had been unusually quiet all morning, his usual banter replaced by a furrowed brow. Malik shook off the feeling and focused on the task at hand. The crane's arms swung slowly, hoisting a massive steel beam into position high above the site. Precision was everything in this moment. One wrong move, and the consequences could be catastrophic. "Steady now," Malik muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the hum of the crane's engine. His eyes flicked between the beam and the ground below, where workers in neon vests scurried like ants. He adjusted the controls with a deft touch, guiding the beam toward its destination. The radio crackled in his ear, a voice from the foreman confirming the alignment. Malik nodded, though no one could see it. Just another day, he thought. Just another beam. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something that made his heart lurch. A flash of movement, small, erratic, and dangerously out of place. A child, no more than 10 years old, had wandered into the restricted area of the site. His pale skin and bright red backpack stood out starkly against the gray dust and steel. The boy was running, his head down, oblivious to the danger around him. Malik's breath caught in his throat as he realized the boy was heading straight toward the drop zone, where a massive concrete slab was being lowered by another crane. "Kid!" Malik shouted, his voice swallowed by the noise. He slammed his hand on the crane's emergency stop, the beam jerking to a halt midair. His pulse pounded in his ears as he scanned the ground below. The boy was still moving, unaware of the slab descending above him. Workers nearby froze, their shouts of alarm rising in a chaotic chorus. But no one was close enough to act. No one except Malik. Without a second thought, Malik threw open the crane's cabin door and scrambled down the ladder, his boots slipping on the rungs in his haste. His mind raced, calculating the seconds he had before the slab reached the ground. 10 seconds, maybe less. He hit the dirt running, his legs pumping as he sprinted toward the boy. The world narrowed to a single point, the child, the slab, and the shrinking distance between them. "Hey, stop!" Malik yelled, his voice raw with desperation. The boy finally looked up, his blue eyes wide with confusion. He froze, but it was too late. The slab was already too close, its shadow swallowing the ground beneath him. Malik didn't hesitate. He launched himself forward, tackling the boy and rolling them both out of the way, just as the slab crashed to the earth with a deafening thud. Dust exploded around them, stinging Malik's eyes and clogging his lungs. For a moment, the world was silent, the chaos of the site replaced by an eerie stillness. Then the boy's sobs broke through, sharp and terrified. Malik sat up, his arms still wrapped protectively around the child. His chest heaved as he checked the boy for injuries. Miraculously, there were none. Just a few scrapes and a tear-streaked face. "You're okay," Malik said softly, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "You're safe now." The boy clung to him, his small body trembling. Malik's heart ached at the sight. He didn't know where the boy had come from or how he'd gotten onto the site, but none of that mattered now. All that mattered was that he was alive. Silence on the site didn't last long. Workers rushed toward them, their shouts of relief and disbelief filling the air. The foreman, a burly man named Hank, pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "Malik, what the hell just happened? You okay?" Malik nodded, still holding the boy. "I'm fine. He's fine. But someone needs to figure out how this kid got in here." Hank's eyes darted to the boy, then back to Malik. "You saved his life, man. That was... I don't even know what to say." Malik didn't respond. He wasn't one for praise, and the weight of the moment was still sinking in. He stood lifting the boy in his arms and carried him toward the site's entrance, where a small crowd had gathered. Among them was a woman in a tailored suit, her blonde hair pulled back tightly and her face etched with panic. She ran toward them, her heels sinking into the dirt. "Ethan!" she cried, reaching for the boy. "Oh my God, Ethan, are you okay?" The boy, Ethan, wriggled out of Malik's arms and into his mother's embrace. She hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face as she murmured words of relief. Malik stepped back, giving them space. He noticed a man approaching behind her, dressed in an expensive-looking suit and exuding an air of authority. The man's sharp eyes took in the scene, lingering on Malik. "What happened here?" the man demanded, his voice calm but commanding. Hank stepped forward, explaining the incident in clipped sentences. The man listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Hank finished, the man turned to Malik. "You're the one who saved my son?" he asked. Malik nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yes, sir. Just did what needed to be done." The man studied him for a moment, then extended his hand. "James Whitaker, this is my wife, Caroline, and our son, Ethan. I don't know how to thank you." Malik shook his hand, surprised by the firmness of the grip. "Malik Jackson, no thanks needed. I'm just glad he's okay." Caroline looked up from Ethan, her eyes red but grateful. "You risked your life for him. We owe you everything." Malik shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, and the intensity of their gratitude made him feel exposed. Anyone would have done the same, he said, though he wasn't sure that was true. James Whitaker's gaze didn't waver. "Not everyone would have acted that fast, or at all. You're a brave man, Mr. Jackson." Malik didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded. The crowd around them began to disperse, workers returning to their tasks as the adrenaline of the moment faded. But James Whitaker lingered, his expression thoughtful. "Do you have a moment to talk?" he asked. "There's something I'd like to discuss." Malik hesitated. He had work to do, and the foreman was already casting impatient glances his way. But something in Whitaker's tone made him curious. "Sure," he said. "Just give me a minute." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Malik returned to his crane, but his mind kept replaying the incident. The boy's terrified eyes, the weight of the slab, the split-second decision that had changed everything. By the time the workday ended, he was exhausted, both physically and mentally. He was about to head home when Hank approached, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Whitaker's waiting for you in the site office," Hank said. "Says it's important." Malik frowned. "What's this about?" Hank shrugged. "Beats me. But the guy's loaded, owns half the buildings downtown. If he wants to talk, you listen." Malik made his way to the small trailer that served as the site's office. Inside, James Whitaker sat at a folding table, a laptop open in front of him. Caroline was there too, holding Ethan's hand. The boy looked calmer now, though his eyes were still wide with the aftershocks of the day. "Mr. Jackson," James said, standing to greet him, "please have a seat." Malik sat, feeling out of place in the cramped space. He was still in his dusty work clothes, his boots leaving faint trails of dirt on the floor. "What's this about?" he asked, echoing his earlier question to Hank. James leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I'll get straight to the point. I run Whitaker Enterprises, one of the largest construction and real estate firms in the state. What you did today wasn't just heroic. It showed quick thinking and courage under pressure. Those are qualities we value." Malik's brow furrowed. He wasn't sure where this was going, but he listened. "I'd like to offer you a job," James continued. "Not as a laborer, but in a supervisory role. You'd be overseeing projects, managing teams, making decisions that shape the skyline. It's a step up. Better pay, better hours, and a chance to use your experience in a new way." Malik blinked, caught off guard. A job offer? He'd spent his entire career on the ground, swinging hammers and climbing scaffolds. The idea of sitting in an office, giving orders instead of taking them, felt like a different world. "I appreciate that," he said slowly, "but I'm not sure I'm the right fit. I don't have any fancy degrees or management experience." James smiled undeterred. "Degrees can be earned. Experience like yours? That's rarer. You've spent years on sites like this. You know the work, the risks, the people. That's worth more than any piece of paper." Caroline spoke up, her voice soft but firm. "Please, Malik, this isn't just about thanking you, though we'll never stop being grateful. We believe you deserve this opportunity." Malik looked at Ethan, who was watching him with quiet curiosity. The boy's earlier fear had been replaced by something else. Trust, maybe, or admiration. It stirred something in Malik, a sense of responsibility he hadn't felt before. "I'll need to think about it," he said finally. "This is a lot." James nodded. "Take your time. Here's my card. Call me when you are ready to talk." Malik took the card, its sleek design a stark contrast to the roughness of his hands. He stood, thanking them both, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The site was quiet now, the machines silent and the workers gone. But Malik's mind was anything but quiet. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of possibility pressing against the edges of his world. Malik's apartment was a modest one-bedroom on the edge of Crestwood, its walls lined with faded paint and memories. He sat at the kitchen table that night, the business card in front of him, its embossed letters catching the light. The offer was tempting, more than tempting. Better pay meant he could finally pay off the last of his debts, maybe even save for something beyond the day-to-day grind. But it also meant leaving behind the life he knew, the camaraderie of the site, the simplicity of labor. Could he handle a world of meetings and paperwork? Did he even belong there? He thought of his late father, a carpenter who taught him the value of hard work. "Do the job right, Malik," he'd always said. "Doesn't matter if anyone's watching." Malik had lived by those words, pouring himself into every task, no matter how small. But this was different. This wasn't about doing the job right. It was about stepping into a role he'd never imagined for himself. The next morning, Malik returned to the site, his mind still wrestling with the decision. Javier noticed his distraction and nudged him during their lunch break. "What's eating you, man? You've been quiet all day." Malik hesitated, then told him about the offer. Javier's eyes widened. "Are you kidding? That's a golden ticket. Why are you even thinking about it?" "It's not that simple," Malik said, picking at his sandwich. "What if I'm not cut out for it? What if I fail?" Javier snorted. "Fail? You just saved a kid's life without blinking? You think you can't handle a desk job? Come on, Malik. You're better than this place." Malik didn't respond, but Javier's words stuck with him. Over the next few days, he watched the site with new eyes. He saw the younger workers, their faces full of ambition but also exhaustion. He saw the older ones, their bodies worn down by years of labor. Was that his future if he stayed? A lifetime of sore joints and fleeting paychecks? On the third day, he called James Whitaker. "I'm interested," Malik said, his voice steady, "but I want to know what I'm getting into. Can we meet?" James's reply was warm. "Absolutely, let's talk." The meeting took place at Whitaker Enterprises headquarters, a sleek glass tower that loomed over downtown Crestwood. Malik felt out of place in his jeans and work boots, but James greeted him with the same warmth he'd shown on the site. They sat in a conference room with a view of the city, and James laid out the details of the job: project oversight, team management, and a starting salary that made Malik's head spin. "You'd start with a training period," James explained. "We'll pair you with a mentor, someone who knows the ropes. After that, you'll be running your own projects. We're building a new residential complex next year, and I think you'd be a great fit to lead it." Malik listened, asking questions when he needed clarity. By the end of the meeting, his hesitation had begun to fade, replaced by a cautious excitement. "I'm in," he said, extending his hand. James shook it firmly. "Welcome to the team, Malik." The transition wasn't easy. Malik's first weeks at Whitaker Enterprises were a whirlwind of new faces, new terms, and new challenges. He traded his hard hat for a clipboard, his work boots for dress shoes that pinched his feet. The office environment was foreign, air-conditioned, quiet, and filled with people who spoke in acronyms and jargon. But Malik was determined to learn. His mentor, a seasoned project manager named Linda, was patient but firm, guiding him through budgets, timelines, and client meetings. There were moments of doubt, especially when he struggled to understand a spreadsheet or fumbled through a presentation. But he kept going, driven by the memory of Ethan's face and the knowledge that this was his chance to build something new. Not just a building, but a life. As months passed, Malik found his footing. He discovered a knack for motivating teams, drawing on his years of experience to connect with workers in a way that office-born managers couldn't. He earned respect, not just for his heroism on the site, but for his work ethic and quiet leadership. The residential complex project became his proving ground, and when it broke ground, Malik stood at the site, clipboard in hand, feeling a pride he hadn't known before. One evening, as he left the office, he ran into Caroline and Ethan outside the building. Ethan was taller now, his red backpack replaced by a school blazer. He grinned when he saw Malik. "Hey, Mr. Jackson," Ethan said, running up to him. "Dad says you're building a whole neighborhood," Malik chuckled. "Something like that. How you doing, kid?" "Good," Ethan said, then hesitated. "Thanks again for, saving me." Malik ruffled the boy's hair. "Anytime." Caroline smiled, her eyes warm. "We're so proud of you, Malik. You've done more than save Ethan. You've inspired us all." Malik didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded, his throat tight. As he watched them walk away, he realized how far he'd come. A single moment, a split-second decision, had changed everything. It had saved a life, yes, but it had also opened a door to a future he'd never dared to imagine. Years later, Malik stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the residential complex, now a vibrant community of families and dreams. The crowd applauded as he spoke, his voice steady and confident. He told the story of that day on the construction site, not to boast, but to remind everyone of a simple truth. One act of courage, one moment of kindness, could ripple outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict. As he cut the ribbon, Malik thought of his father's words, "Do the job right." He had in more ways than one, and in doing so, he'd built something far greater than steel and concrete. He'd built a legacy. Life is full of moments that test us, moments that ask us to act, to care, to be more than we thought we could be. Malik's story reminds us that a single act of courage can change everything. So the next time you see someone in need, don't hesitate. Step forward. Act with kindness. You never know how far the ripples will reach. Share this story to inspire others, and let's build a world where every moment counts.